vision, or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Patricia, and for the next hour I'll be reading from the June 11th issue of the Am-Pol Eagle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Polish scientists develop protective vests and helmets for service dogs. Scientists at the Wrocław University of Science and Technology are developing protective helmets and vests for service dogs used in the military, police, and rescue operations, with the first helmets set to enter the market this month. Researchers from the university's Faculty of Mechanical Engineering have spent the past 2 years designing ballistic protection systems through their startup, Astriva. After initially developing protective vests for service animals at the request of Uniformed Services, the team expanded the project to include specialized dog helmets, according to a university press release. The tested helmet prototypes are scheduled for official launch in June 2026. The project is being supported by the Wrocław Center for Technology Transfer, which is assisting with implementation, licensing, and commercialization. Researchers said growing demand for protective equipment reflects increasing concern for the welfare of service animals operating in hazardous environments. This has both ethical and economic significance, as training such dogs costs tens of thousands and requires many months of work for the handler, the scientists explained. The equipment is custom designed for each animal based on its build and operational requirements. We select materials and solutions depending on whether the dog is exposed to contact with sharp objects, knife or firearm attacks, or long swimming sessions, said Karina Kravitz, who founded Astriva with Dariusz Pajka, Ph.D., and Jakob Slavinsky, Ph.D. Kravitz said the vest is designed as a fitted harness and can be fitted with different protective inserts depending on the dog's role. And the handler can choose a protective insert against sharp objects, a ballistic insert, or a buoyancy insert. The researchers said custom fitting is essential to ensure both protection and freedom of movement. The best fitting method is to give the finished prototype to the dog's handler for a month or two of testing. The prototype returns to us with comments on any elements that require corrections, and after the corrections, there are another 2 or 3 months of final testing so that the finished product meets its requirements for several years of the dog's service, Pajka explained. One of the project evaluators is Senior Warrant Officer Reserve Paweł Domanowski, a former operator in Poland's military commando unit who spent 6 years handling combat dogs. As experienced dog handlers, we know what threats to expect and what is needed, and the researchers take our experience into account and translate it into specific solutions, Domanowski said. He said, equipment requirements vary depending on the dog's mission. A military dog often has to cover many kilometers in difficult terrain before performing its task. Therefore, its equipment, including ballistic vests, should be as light as possible, ensuring freedom of movement and durability during prolonged exertion. A police dog, on the other hand, typically arrives at the scene by vehicle and performs tasks over a shorter distance and in a shorter time, so it can use a heavier vest that provides better protection. Astriva was founded in 2024 with support from the Academic Business Incubator of the Wrocław University of Science and Technology. Continuing with the June 11th issue. Lecture to examine Sick as a promoter of Polish-American friendship. The Polish Museum of America invites the public to a special lecture by Stefan Władysuk of the library at the Polish Institute in Montreal. Arthur Sick as a promoter of Polish-American friendships on Thursday, July 9th at 6 p.m. at the Polish Museum of America, 984 North Milwaukee Avenue, Chicago. Admission is $20. The lecture will explore the life and work of Arthur Sick, 1894 to 1951, one of the most celebrated Polish Jewish American artists of the 20th century. Renowned for his masterful illuminations, paintings, and political cartoons, Sick used his art to champion democracy, human rights, and the enduring ties between Poland and the United States. A special attention will be given to Sick's effort to highlight the contributions of Poles to American history, including his celebrated series, The Glorious Days of Polish-American Fraternity. Through his art, Sick served as a cultural ambassador who promoted mutual understanding and friendship between the Polish and American peoples. The event is presented in conjunction with the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States, offering an opportunity to reflect on the historical connections that have united Poland and America for generations. Continuing with the Am-Pol Eagle for June 11th. Polish Saturday schools in U.S. discuss serving students in Polonia. Teachers and board members of Monsignor Peter Adamski's Polish Saturday School in Buffalo spent the Memorial Day weekend attending a conference in San Francisco. The event was sponsored by Polish Supplementary School Council in New York City, Polskiego, and the Polish government. Over 300 teachers and parents came together with many panelists, educators, and a delegation from the Polish government to discuss new ways of teaching Polish language at Polish schools in the U.S. and Canada. During many hours of dialogue and presentation, teachers exchanged experiences, discussed problems, and sought to find ways to better serve Polonia. The conference is held every 2 years by different Polish schools in different areas of the U.S. The Polish school in Buffalo hosted the Conference 7 in 2004. That conference was a big success for Monsignor Adamski, PSS, and Polonia in Buffalo, with wonderful cooperation from the late John Orden of the Polish National Alliance and the late Richard Selecki, president of the Western New York Division of the Polish American Congress. This year's conference theme was bilingualism, opportunities and challenges in Polish schools abroad in the 21st century. Polish News Bites. Pope Leo XIV sent his paternal closeness and assurance of his prayerful solidarity for all organizers and participants in the 24th edition of the One Heart, One Spirit concert in Rzeszów, Poland, on the Solemnity of Corpus Christi on June 4th. Pope Leo imparted an apostolic blessing to all those at the concert and viewing online, expressing his hope that they might become one heart and, in one spirit, sing a new song to the Lord through their daily lives. The papal message was conveyed through Archbishop Paolo Rudelli, substitute of the Secretariat of State, who sent a special letter to Bishop Jan Łatowa of Reznikov. Pope Leo noted that prayer, Eucharistic processions, music, and song helped Catholics recognize the immense gift of the Eucharist, the precious treasure placed into our hands and one from which we should draw frequently, adoring Jesus hidden in the bread and participating in Holy Mass every Sunday. One Heart, One Spirit concert has remained one of Poland's largest and most recognizable evangelicalization events, drawing thousands of people each year. Turning to the editorials of the Am-Pol Eagle for June 11th. Flag Day, honoring a symbol of unity and freedom. Each year on June 14th, Americans observe Flag Day, a time to recognize and celebrate one of the nation's most enduring symbols, the Stars and the Stripes. While it may not receive the same attention as some other patriotic holidays, Flag Day offers an important opportunity to reflect on the history of our flag and the values it represents. Flag Day commemorates June 14, 1777, when the Continental Congress adopted the first official American flag. The resolution was simple: resolved that the flag of the United States be 13 stripes, alternate red and white, that the Union be 13 stars, white in a blue field. Those original stars and stripes represented the 13 colonies that had declared their independence and embarked on the difficult journey of building a new nation. Over the centuries, the flag has evolved as new states joined the Union. The importance of the flag extends beyond its design. It symbolizes the principles on which the United States was founded: liberty, equality, democracy, and opportunity. For generations of Americans, it has served as a reminder of the sacrifices made by soldiers, public servants, and ordinary citizens who worked to preserve and strengthen those ideals. Flag Day also reminds us that patriotism is more than displaying a banner or attending a ceremony. True patriotism involves active citizenship, participating in our communities, respecting differing viewpoints, and working together to solve common challenges. The flag represents not only our history, but also our shared responsibility for the nation's future. In an era when public discourse can often seem divided, the American flag remains a symbol that belongs to all Americans. Regardless of political beliefs, background, or geography, it reflects a common bond and a shared commitment to the promise of the United States. As Flag Day approaches, or has passed now, citizens are encouraged to display the flag proudly, learn more about its history, and take a moment to consider what it represents. By honoring the flag, we honor the generations who came before us and reaffirm our dedication to the ideals that continue to guide our nation. The next editorial: Stop the Negative Campaign Ads. The current campaign advertisements for New York State Senator Jeremy Zellner and Assemblyman John Rivera in the New York State 61st Senate District primary race are disappointing. Rather than focusing on the pressing concerns facing New York residents, these ads rely heavily on negative rhetoric and personal attacks that contribute little to the public conversation. The tone of the advertisements is particularly disappointing at a time when New Yorkers are struggling with rising costs, housing affordability, public safety concerns, aging infrastructure, rising energy costs, and challenges in education and healthcare. Voters deserve a serious discussion about policy. Instead, the ads devote significant attention to criticizing an opponent's character, or in Zellner's case, viewers would think he's running against Donald Trump. Campaigns centered on negativity contribute to public cynicism about government and discourage meaningful civic engagement. When political messaging becomes dominated by insults, accusations, and inflammatory language, voters are left with less information about what candidates actually intend to accomplish if elected. Voters deserve and should expect a higher standard, one that emphasizes respect, problem solving, and accountability. And a letter to the editor. Dear Editor, I just read an article about the Buffalo Historical Museum. Groups representing Hispanics and Indigenous Americans are involved in planning for the celebration. I did not see any representatives from the Polish American community. Is this an oversight or simply a slight to our ethnic group? Polish Americans have a huge impact on American history. But in the city of Buffalo, Polish Americans played a key role in this city's economy, culture, and traditions. Just look at the contributions that Polish American soldiers played during both World Wars. According to the U.S. Census, midway through the 21st century, the largest ethnic group in the Polish Western New York area were Americans of Polish descent. And we're still here with our children and grandchildren. It would be a shame if the Polish contribution is omitted from the 250th celebration. Signed, Ron Stipkowski. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Am-Pol Eagle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We're continuing with the June 11th edition. From Perspectives, Popular Cars in Poland and the U.S. by David Franchek. Lots of cars over the years. Despite the spike in gas prices as a consequence of the war in Iraq, spring and summer are high driving seasons, a time when Western New Yorkers embark on the great American road trip. I've been a motorist for over half a century, my favorite car being a classic 1956 green and cream color Chevrolet gifted to me when my grandmother, Victoria Smolarek, upgraded to a newer model. That Chevy was a honey, but because I was only 14 years old at the time, I only drove it up and down our driveway on Weimar Street. Unfortunately, my father, Stan Franchek, sold the car for $300 to a relative because he didn't want the vehicle taking the spot in the garage meant for the family's mid-60s gold Ford station wagon. When my brother Tim, sister Nancy, and I got older, Stan ditched the station wagon and got something a little more sophisticated, which was a gray 1970s Chevrolet Monte Carlo sedan. From age 16, when I got my driver's license, through my 20s, I inherited a lot of hand-me-down cars and junkers, including a big gas-guzzling mid-1960s Pontiac Catalina, which was one of my favorites, despite the fact that the car's brakes gave out when I was driving down a bridge on Bailey Avenue. These vehicles broke down a lot, but I enjoyed them nonetheless, and at the time, I could do minor repairs since the mechanics under the hood were a lot simpler than they are today. I didn't buy a brand new car until the mid-1980s when I was elected Fillmore District Council member, earning the princely salary of $29,000 a year, enabling me to buy a Ford Escort for $6,000. Because they don't manufacture passengers' cars anymore, if you wanted a mid-size new car from Ford, you'd pay a low end of $30,000 for a Ford Escape SUV. At 16, my peers and I couldn't wait to get our driver's permit and driver's licenses because it meant freedom and independence. I am flabbergasted that only 25% of Generation Z folks born from 1997 through 2012 get their driver's licenses at age 16. Maybe they prefer to play computer games in their parents' basements or take Ubers everywhere when they get older. Because I hang on to cars for a long time, I've kept my last buggy, a Ford Focus, for nearly 15 years, racking up over 160,000 miles. I only got rid of the vehicle last year when I acquired a used Kia Soul, which was once owned by my good friend Bob Sienkiewicz, who passed away in 2024. The black Kia only has 30,000 miles on it, and Bob's sister Linda, who lives in Lisbon, Portugal, made me an offer I couldn't refuse to buy the car. Cars are a big part of American culture, and the massive mid-century Federal Highway Act opened up the country to millions of motorists. I still remember fields and ponds from behind our house on Weimar Street being removed to make room for President Eisenhower's massive 1950s highway building program. The thruway would now be behind our house. In the mid-1960s, we all stood along the fence to watch President Lyndon Baines Johnson's motorcade speed by for his visit to meet and confer with Kaisertown environmentalist and jeweler Stanley Spisiak. Car culture in Poland. During the communist era, gasoline was very expensive in Poland, so few people owned cars. Today, while comparatively cheap compared to nations in Western Europe, costs for a gallon of gas in Poland are around $6.50 to $6.60 a gallon, compared to about $4.50 per gallon in Buffalo in June. Traveling and living in Poland in the 1970s and 1980s, I quickly became aware that most Poles use public transportation, such as streetcars, trains, buses, and taxicabs. That was easy because Poland had or has an excellent public transportation system. However, people did own cars but didn't use them as frequently as Americans. In the 1970s, my cousin Sosia Maj lived in Podgórze section of the beautiful southern Polish city of Krakow. She had a nice apartment she shared with her husband Gisław and her daughter Hanka. Gisław, a diminutive of Gisław, was proud of his compact black Polski Fiat Maluk, a car manufactured in Poland through a license with the Italian Fiat Automobile Company. The Maj mostly used public transportation, but on weekends they liked to take an urlaub or trip in the Polski Maluk to the beautiful countryside around Krakow to have a picnic, pick wild mushrooms, and enjoy nature. Once they drove to the industrial town of Katowice to pick up a bottle of American ketchup that was for sale at a government specialty store. I accompanied them, scrunched in the back seat of the diminutive car, to visit many of these destinations. Polish car culture today. From the fall of communism in Poland more than 30 years ago until today, many more Poles own private family vehicles. About 64% of families in Poland own at least one personal vehicle, compared to about 94% of people who own cars in the United States. But as noted, the public transportation infrastructure is much better in Poland than in the U.S. The Polish luxury car market is dominated by German SUVs and vehicles produced by German companies such as BMW, Audi, Mercedes-Benz, and Porsche. But the biggest selling and most popular car sold in Poland is the Japanese Toyota Corolla, followed by the Skoda Octavia, manufactured at the Skoda Auto Works in the Czech Republic. Interestingly, the most popular and best-selling passenger car in the United States is the Toyota Camry. What about electric cars? Interest in EVs has dipped in the United States, with about 6.5% to 7.4% people owning them here. Numbers are similar in Poland, with about 7% or about 100,000 EV owners in the country. Continuing with the June 11th issue of the Am-Pol Eagle, under Polonia's calendar, and starting with an item scheduled for today, Thursday, June 18th, the time of this reading. Nativity Miguel Middle School graduation, 2 p.m., 128 Wilson Street. Next item, Wednesday, June 24th, Polish American Congress, Western New York Division General Membership Meeting, 7 to 9 p.m., Buffalo Airport Hotel, 4600 Genesee Street, Cheektowaga. Next item, Saturday, June 27th, Mass of Remembrance for those recently buried at St. Stanislaw Cemetery, 4 p.m., Mass at St. Stanislaw Church, followed by a light reception in the Marian Hall. Next item, June 28th, Sunday, Celebration of Life / fundraiser in memory of Father Krista. 10 a.m., Mass at St. Casimir Church, 160 Cable Street, Buffalo, followed by a fundraiser at Potts Banquet Hall, Cheektowaga, $20 cash only, lunch, music, raffles, and more. Next item, July 24th, 25th, and 26th, Polish American Arts Festival, Cheektowaga Town Park, Polish food and beverage, music, crafts, dance groups, exhibits, lectures, demonstrations, and more. Free admission. Next item, Tuesday, August 4th, Buffalo Bison's Polish Festival Night. Pre-game club level party, 5:30 p.m., and live music, great Polish food, specials, and more. Bison Leadership Award presentation to Tom and Paula Golomkowski of Happy Swallow. Polish American of the Year Award presented to Mary Lou Robeck. Post-game fireworks. Next item, Saturday, August 8th. Derek Kazarowski Memorial College Scholarship Fundraiser, Depew Polish Falcons, 6:30 p.m. For tickets or information, contact Jim Kazarowski at jejkaz@yahoo.com or 716-864-4642. Next item, Sunday, August 23rd, All Polish Composer Concert by the Amherst Chamber Orchestra, St. Stanislaw Church, 389 Peckham Street, Buffalo, 2:30 p.m. Free will offering. Garden party following the concert at the former convent, Wilson Street entrance. For garden party tickets and reservations, call 716-876-8108, extension 133. And the final item, Saturday, September 26th, St. Aldebert Basilica, 140th anniversary dinner at Kybas Banquet, Sloan, New York. Additional information to follow. Continuing with the June 11th issue of the Am-Pol Eagle. This Week in the History of Buffalo's Polonia by Carl L. Bucke. The following is a list of events that occurred during the week of June 11th to June 17th. June 11th, 1924, the Polish American Businessmen's Association sponsors a dinner in honor of Iggy Grankowski at Dom Polski Hall for the purpose of raising funds needed to defer the costs of his participation as a bicycle racer in the Summer Olympics in Paris. June 13, 1909, Bishop Charles Colton presides at the dedication of a new church for Corpus Christi Parish. As part of the dedication celebration, visiting Bishop Paul Rode confirms 800 children later that same day. Located near the intersection of Clark and Kent Streets, Corpus Christi Church remains in use to this day. June 14, 1942, the Adam Plavacki Post of the American Legion sponsors a Flag Day celebration at Buffalo Civic Stadium, later renamed War Memorial Stadium. More than 10,000 people attended this event, this patriotic observance, where Father Joseph Klapinski delivered the invocation and Helen Verkskorek sang the national anthem. The next item, June 14, 1971, announcement of the demolition of the 4-story brick building that had been used as a school by St. Stanislaw Parish. June 16th to the 17th, 1921, Marie Curie, the Nobel laureate in chemistry and physics, visits Buffalo. Despite illness, Curie tours the Gratwick Laboratory, which is now part of the Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center. June 16, 1923, a fire at St. Stanislaw Church in Buffalo causes extensive damage to one of its 2 bell towers and to its organ and several of the stained glass windows. And the final item, June 17, 1972, during his campaign for the Democratic presidential nomination, Senator George McGovern visits Buffalo's Broadway Market. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the June 11th Am-Pol Eagle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Aloisi Virkonis defeats Germans but captured and murdered by Soviets. This is the Bazia's Corner column. Remember me? My name is Aloisi Virkonis. I was born in 1894 in Makał Podhalański and became a Polish military commander and colonel of the Polish Army and a divisional commander during the invasion of Poland. I was murdered in Katyn massacre. I joined the Polish legions during World War I. After the Oath Crisis, I was drafted into the Austro-Hungarian army and sent to the Italian front and fought with distinction in Shock Battalion Mar Kotolesi. After the war in November 1918, I joined the Polish army. During the years between 1924 and 1930, I commanded the Piński-based Polish 84th Infantry Regiment. I was promoted to colonel. Until August 1939, I commanded the infantry units of the Polish 21st Mountain Infantry Division. During the invasion of Poland in 1939, I was commanding officer of the Polish 38th Infantry Division, formed of reserve units between Tarnów and Kraków. Due to the fast pace of the German advances, the division entered combat on September 9th. From September 11th, it was attached to the Malopolska Army and was withdrawing towards the Romanian bridgehead. Under the leadership of General Kazimierz Sosnowski, I commanded the division of the Battle of Sadowa Wisnia, in which I defeated the German 2nd Mountain Division. However, before reaching Lwów, the unit became bogged down in the Battle of Janów on September 17th. Despite offering heavy resistance, only a single regiment managed to break through enemy lines and reach the besieged city. After the capitulation of Lwów to the Soviet Union in September 22, 1939, I was arrested by the NKVD and imprisoned in Starobielski concentration camp. I was murdered in the Katyn massacre. In April 1940, for my wartime service, I was posthumously promoted to the rank of general. Next item in the column, Landmark Journey. Spend a day in Staten Island, New York at the Vorlezer's house at what is believed to be the nation's oldest elementary school building on Arthur Kill Road opposite Center Street, Richmond, Staten Island. The two-story frame structure, built before 1696 by the local Dutch congregation, was used for religious services as well as for educational purposes. The Voorlezer was a layman chosen to teach and conduct limited religious services. The building also served as his residence. He taught in English as well as Dutch. His pupils also included French and possibly Indian children. From 1705 until 1872, the house was a residence of the Rezu and Van Pelt families. It continued as a residence until it was donated to the Staten Island Historical Society in 1939, and subsequently resorted and made into a museum. It features an early American schoolroom, also one of the 1840 period, with benches, desks, books, writing material, and other equipment. Residential parts of the building include an old Dutch kitchen, an 18th century living room, and a bedroom with furnishings of the 1800 period. The house is open daily from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. except Monday. There is no admission fee. For details, visit historicrichmondtown, all one word, .org. Next item in the column, Museum Corner. The Polish-American Museum, located in downtown Port Washington, is easily reachable by train, bus, or car. The museum is open on Thursday and Friday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and staffed by volunteers. The museum features many items as well as items from World War I and World War II, including uniforms. For additional information, call 516-883-6542 or visit the website polishamericanmuseum.org. Next item of interest. The month of June is our modern-day wedding season, and its namesake might explain why. The Romans named June after Juno, the Roman goddess of love and marriage. Like her Greek counterpart Hera, Juno was married to the chief Roman god Jupiter and was considered the queen of the gods. And the final item in the column, curious. The first Latin school in the future American metropolis was founded by Dr. Carolus Alexander Curtius, a learned professor from Lithuania. He was sent over by the West India Company in answer to solicitations of the New Amsterdam officials. Curtius performed the duties of his vocation for 2 years, and the colonists no longer sent their children to New England for higher education. Curtius was also one of the first physicians in the colony. However, some misunderstanding arose between him and the authorities about the question of his salary, and this caused him to leave his position. Continuing with the June 11 issue of the Am-Pol Eagle. Tsiolkovsky is gone, but his work goes on, by Tom Terapaki. This is Tom Talk column. Part 1. Nearly 80 years ago, Korczak Tsiolkovsky began working on the largest sculpture in the world. Today, it is only partially completed, but Tsiolkovsky's family is carrying on his work of carving a three-dimensional figure of Chief Crazy Horse on horseback out of an entire mountain. The head of Crazy Horse, nearly 90 feet high from chin to crown, has been completed. When the entire carving is completed, it will be 563 feet high by 641 feet long. The scope will be enormous. For example, Crazy Horse's head is large enough to contain all of the 60-foot high heads of the presidents at Mount Rushmore. Born to Polish immigrants, Tsiolkovsky was born September 6, 1908, in Boston to Polish parents. Both his parents, Anna and Josef, died in a boating accident when he was an infant, and he grew up under difficult circumstances in a series of foster homes. He was out on his own at 16, taking various jobs to put himself through Ringe Technical School in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He then became an apprentice pattern maker in the shipyards on the Boston waterfront and tried his hand at woodworking. At age 18, he handcrafted a grandfather clock from 55 pieces of Santo Domingo mahogany. He never received any formal art training, but he studied the masters and became quite accomplished. His first marble sculpture, made in 1932, was of Judge Frederick Pickering Cabot, the man who had inspired him as a child growing up in the rough neighborhoods of Boston. Tsiolkovsky moved to New Britain, Connecticut, to begin life as a professional artist. In 1932, his sculpture of Noah Webster, the author of the dictionary, was unveiled in West Hartford, Connecticut, to great acclaim. In 1939, Tsiolkovsky was hired as a sculptor's assistant by Gutzon Borglum to work on the massive Mount Rushmore project. Borglum was a great artist, but he was a difficult man in many ways. There was a dispute between the two men, and Borglum fired him by telegram. Tsiolkovsky's stint on the project lasted just 19 days. Acclaim for Paderewski's sculpture. That year, Korsak's marble sculpture of Ignacy Jan Paderewski, called Paderewski Portrait of an Immortal, was displayed in the Polish Pavilion at the 1939 New York World's Fair. Paderewski was a Polish pianist, composer, and statesman, and was the first prime minister of the Second Polish Republic. When the sculpture won first prize, Korsak gained a good deal of attention as an artist. That led to several Lakota chiefs, including Lakota elder Henry Standing Bear, to write to him about working on a monument honoring Crazy Horse. Chief Henry Standing Bear wrote, "My fellow chiefs and I would like the white man to know the red man has great heroes too." Crazy Horse was chosen because he was a brilliant tactician and military leader, the man who defeated General George Custer and Little Bighorn. Crazy Horse also refused to sign any treaties with the U.S. government or live on a reservation. The two men discussed the project, but when World War II broke out, Korsak, at age 34, volunteered for service. He was among the U.S. forces that landed on Omaha Beach on D-Day and later was wounded. When the war was over, there were a number of lucrative opportunities for a talented sculptor like Korsak. Plans were underway for a number of memorials for those who had lost their lives in the war, especially in Europe. However, after much thought, he decided to accept the invitation of Chief Standing Bear and take on the colossal challenge of the Crazy Horse Monument. The location of the Crazy Horse Monument was to be Thunderhead Mountain in South Dakota's Black Hills, sacred land for the Lakota people. Korsak visualized the project as a nonprofit effort that would not accept any government funding. I chose to remain true to my principles of individual initiative and free enterprise to and for the Indian people of America, he wrote. The plan was not to just carve the mountain, but to also create a museum honoring the history and traditions of Native Americans, as well as a university and medical training center for Native American students. Korsak arrived in the Black Hills on May 3, 1947, with a huge task awaiting the self-described tough, crazy Polak. The next issue, the work begins. Continuing with the June 11th issue of the Am-Pol Eagle. Polonia's Garden, Controlling a Garden Pest by Renia Senko-Hanchuk. Most insects we find in the garden are beneficial, but there are some that can definitely cause problems. I was prompted to look into the Japanese beetle after my friend Peggy Frontgiek emailed me about her issue with this particularly destructive insect. Native to Japan, the Japanese beetle was accidentally introduced to the U.S., where it has few natural enemies. It damages grasses and feeds on more than 300 ornamental and agricultural plants, including roses, grapes, birch trees, and raspberries. The life cycle of this beetle includes a larvae stage when it feeds on roots underground and the adult stage when it feeds on leaves. It is easy to recognize by its shiny metallic green bodies and the skeletalized leaves they leave behind. Peggy's experiment to protect her basil plant is included below, but there are some tips to deal with the Japanese beetles in your garden. The key to control and preventing the Japanese beetle from invading your garden is early intervention. Chemical sprays for the grub and adult stage are available. Consult with your garden representative regarding safe products. Hand picking, actually tapping them into a basin of soapy water, is time-consuming, effective, and I find very satisfying. The beetles are sluggish in the early morning or evening. Beetles attract more beetles, so starting this technique early in the season, late June or early July, slows the influx of beetles to your garden. Plant selection. A list of plants that attract the beetle is provided in the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service site listed below. But equally important is the list of plants that repel the beetle, like garlic, chives, tansy, begonias, and marigolds. Covers. Gardeners find that covering plants with netting is helpful, but those plants requiring pollination will need to be uncovered during the flowering stage. Many birds, including starlings, robins, cardinals, and crows, feed on Japanese beetles. A bird-friendly garden with feeders, water, and nesting areas help reduce the infestation. Japanese beetle traps are controversial. It is found that they attract beetles from a large surrounding area, bringing more beetles to your garden. We're heading into Japanese beetle season. Let me know if you find anything that works especially well. Contact me via editor@ampoleagle.com or mail to Polonia Gardens, care of Am-Pol Eagle, 3620 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York 14215. And some resources at www.aphis.us.gov/plant-pest. And the other site is www.almanac.com/pests-and-diseases. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Am-Pol Eagle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, continuing with the June 11th issue. Kalina Singers celebrate 125th anniversary. Fresh off his second place finish overall at the recent Polish Singers Alliance 53rd International Convention competition, the Kalina Singing Society hosted a joyful celebration of its 125th anniversary at the Creekside Banquet Facility on June 7, 2026. President Michelle Caulfield welcomed the attendees and invited Gregory Dosenko and family musicians for the day's event to accompany the singing of the national anthems of Poland, Canada, and the United States. A thoughtful invocation was offered by Father Mark Wolski, offering some pre-prayer quotes in praise of music, particularly that from the human voice, and most appropriately for the Kalina Women's Chorus in praise of women. A tasty luncheon followed with animated conversation and beautiful music from the strolling musicians, enhanced by the elegant setting and wonderful historical display of Kalina's history, including an ample number of trophies garnered through the years. Gary Biankowski, Vice President of the Polish Singers Alliance, was the program MC and invited Brian Nowak, Supervisor of the town of Cheektowaga, to offer his proclamation honoring Kalina's accomplishments and enhancement of the cultural life of Cheektowaga and all of Western New York, especially noting the number of years they have held rehearsals in the town. Biankowski also read portions of a letter of congratulations from the Polish Consul General in New York, Mateusz Skakowskis, and a proclamation from Erie County Executive Mark Polenkars acknowledging the rich history of Kalina. Biankowski called on Krysia Kazervinsky, in attendance with her husband Joseph and representing the Symphonia Choir of Hamilton, who presented a framed certificate honoring Kalina's 120th year of promoting Polish culture through song. Symphonia, founded by Ms. Kazerski's father, will be celebrating their 75th anniversary in October. Biankowski offered his own words of congratulations and praise for the accomplishments of the society, reminding the audience of the wisdom of Pope St. John Paul II and his reminder to continue the traditions. He concluded with an invitation for all to join in the singing of How Quickly Time Passes. After the song, he reminded those present that Kalina is always looking for new members. The Kalina ladies offered some musical selections accompanied by the musicians, including one of their competition songs, Kolesanka, with its lovely harmonies. Though not well rehearsed, they sang Kalina, a Polish song appropriate for the occasion, and concluded with their traditional closing, Norman Ramsey's The Blessing of Aaron. Teresa Krawczyk, president of District 9 of the Polish Singers Alliance, the district to which Kalina belongs, offered her congratulations and expressed her pride in being a member of the award-winning choir. Mary Lou Rolbeck, president of the Central Administration of Polish Singers Alliance, offered words of praise for the choir and celebrated the anniversaries of some of the members who have reached milestone anniversaries as members of the Polish Singers Alliance. Awarded a pin and certificate were Ursula Prochenski, celebrating her 10th anniversary, and Mary Jean Sferik, a 40-year member, both singing exclusively for Kalina. Singing with 3 different choirs over the years, Teresa Krawczyk was also awarded a 40-year pin and certificate. Similarly, Dolores Korsinski was honored 50 years of service and membership in the Alliance, having sung with the Chopin Singing Society, Quo Vadis Choir, and Kalina Singing Society. Michelle Caulfield was honored with a 60-year anniversary pin, having sung exclusively with Kalina from her youth. An attendee noted that there were 200 years of singing and service acknowledged in just 5 individuals. Wyrovek also pointed to Marie Svitalski, one of the guests, who celebrated her 104th birthday, a perfect example of how healthy it is to belong to a choir. Svitalski was a fixture with St. John's Golubert's Choir and is a long-time supporter of Kalina Singing Society. She graciously offered her congratulations and wishes for a successful future for the organization. Later, Irene Chilslek, young at heart at 98 years, offered her congratulations and words of wisdom. Kalina President Caulfield brought the celebration to a close, acknowledging those who made the day a success, noting that the traditional stolat doesn't apply, but now they move on to dislak, and reminding those gathered that the choir is looking for a new director. The program booklet acknowledged and Caulfield called to mind Kalina's recently deceased director, Edward J. Whitall, as well-known musician of Polonia and beyond, who passed away in December. A history book prepared by Gregory Whitall is in the works and will be made available in early 2027, documenting the 125 years of accomplishment of this cultural asset of Western New York. And ending with the June 16th issue of the Am-Pol Eagle, the July Lackawanna School District meeting set. The Lackawanna School District has announced its upcoming meetings dates. They include Wednesday, July 1st, 2026. Meeting will be held at the McKinley Administration Building, 245 South Shore Boulevard, Lackawanna, New York, 14218 at 6 p.m. Monday, July 13th, 2026, work session will be held at the McKinley Administration Building, 245 South Shore Boulevard, Lackawanna, at 6 p.m. And Thursday, July 16th, regular meeting will be held at the McKinley Administration Building, 245 South Shore Boulevard, at 7 p.m. You have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the June 11th issue of the Am-Pol Eagle. We read from the Am-Pol Eagle every Saturday at 3 p.m. Your reader has been Patricia. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the Island Dispatch. Following that, at 5 o'clock is the Lockport Union Southern Journal. And at 6 o'clock, we have the Jamestown Post-Journal. Stay with us for these readings and more. If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Zero, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability which